Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Red Donkey Projections. I'm Eric and we have Lucas as always.
Hey everyone.
Today is Sunday, October 31st. Happy Halloween, everyone. And today we're going to be talking about two very important elections that are coming up in New Jersey and in Virginia. As you know, these are the two states in the country where they hold state elections a year after the presidential election. So in New Jersey, we have Phil Murphy versus Jack Ciattarelli, and in Virginia, we have Terry McAuliffe versus Glenn Youngkin. We're going to be taking a deep dive into both of these races, kind of update you on who's going to win most likely and why, and what the other candidate needs to do to turn out. Obviously, the more important and concerning race for both parties is the Virginia race because that one has surprisingly tightened up. So that's what we're going to take a look at today.
And with that being said, let's get right into it.
So we're going to start off with the New Jersey gubernatorial election versus Phil Murphy and Jack Ciattarelli. So Phil Murphy in this case is the incumbent. He won in 2017 in a respectable margin, kind of what people expected. And he wasn't necessarily a bad governor per se, by the New Jersey Democrats thinking. The one scandal that he may have that the Republicans really hold him accountable for is nursing home deaths. That he mismanaged the COVID patients and just sent them to nursing homes, and that's a huge talking point on the Republican side. That kind of, which is what they used to attempt to paint Phil Murphy in a negative light, which we can transition now to Jack Ciattarelli. So Jack Ciattarelli is the Republican nominee for this election. He's putting 150% in campaigning in New Jersey. There are Jack Ciattarelli signs everywhere. I can testify to that as I live in New Jersey along with Lucas. So he's really trying to get his name out there. He's putting a lot of advertisements in, all confronting Phil Murphy, saying how he's going to raise taxes. So yeah, that's exactly what's going on here. But as all of you know, and as we explained, New Jersey is a pretty solid Democratic state, and we don't expect Jack Ciattarelli to win in any close margin. But what he's going to, and what he has done, is just tighten the margin. So instead of it being like a safe 15 plus point margin, we're thinking it's going to be some sort of 11 to 12 margin. So it's going to be kind of like a likely. And that's kind of all Jack Ciattarelli has been able to do. We don't expect any upset here in New Jersey because of its strong Democratic base that, we see in the Newark area and we see in the Camden area and just any urban area here in New Jersey.
I would agree with you on that. And I want to also add that Democrats can really take a big sigh of relief that they didn't nominate Diane Allen as the nominee instead of lieutenant governor of position. Sorry, instead of the lieutenant candidate position, because she is a very known for being very moderate. She would have posed a much greater threat against Phil Murphy than Jack Ciattarelli does. Jack Ciattarelli has been really running an interesting campaign. As in the primary, he was considered more of the moderate candidate, but now he's running pretty extreme, which is not going to really do that well in a state like New Jersey. So as Eric was mentioning, some of the polling did get tighter recently. So as you saw here, Fairleigh Dickinson University, 9 points, Monmouth, 11 points. I think a lot of this was because Phil Murphy initially in the beginning of this had very, very high name recognition. No one really knew who Jack Ciattarelli was, but then now that he's pulling all these ads out, he is getting the margin to be tighter. Now, I really don't think it's going to be a 6-point margin. I do think this is a pretty big outlier, but I think we are going to shift our previous prediction that he was going to absolutely win by over 15 points. I think he might end up going a little bit under that. And part of the reason why Phil Murphy's dropping is probably also because of Joe Biden, which is what we'll see again with Virginia. With Phil Murphy, what he has to do is he has to increase turnout in areas such as, the northern Jersey suburban areas, such as, Morris County and parts of Essex County, West Essex County. He's got to get those numbers out. So, and it's going to be no question that Jack Ciattarelli will lose the election. I think for sure Phil Murphy's going to win, but it'll be a question of what the margin exactly is, which we'll get to at the end of the video. But first, we're going to head to Virginia, the more consequential election, or maybe not consequential, but the closer election, the more important one. So I'll actually hand it over to Eric now to go over some context for the Virginia race.
So what we have here is two fresh candidates. Well, I shouldn't say fresh. I should just say new in the sense that the incumbent governor Ralph Northam is term limited and he cannot run for re-election. So that leaves an open seat for both a Democrat, obviously, and Republican. And who do we have? We have Terry McAuliffe, who actually used to be a Virginia governor, but not directly before. He served one term before Northam, actually. And then we have Glenn Youngkin, who is just a businessman that's known in the state of Virginia. And before, when we made this video, it was we kind of thought it was clear as to who the winner is going to be. We thought that it was going to be decisively Terry McAuliffe because we were just correlating the margins with how the presidential election went. And at that time, first of all, Biden won in like a likely 10, I think, 10 or so points. And second of all, he was more popular at the time that we shot that video. Well, now, obviously with politics, not that long of a time result can also result in huge changes because now Joe Biden is not as popular as he used to be, and we kind of see that by the polls, and Lucas will show those poll numbers later in the video that they're really close now. And what Terry McAuliffe has basically been running on, and kind of basically 90% of his campaigning has been tying Glenn Youngkin to Donald Trump. And one would think that that's probably just the way to go, but I think he's overdone it. He's running this establishment platform. He hasn't really kind of outlined his own values that much, and all he's done is just associated Glenn Youngkin with Donald Trump. And there's even yard signs that he made that just has Youngkin equals Trump on it. So that's really all he has been doing. And as Lucas will show in the polls, it's getting a lot closer. And Joe Biden's recent slump in popularity has also taken McAuliffe with that. So Lucas can now explain the nitty-gritty.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with you on that. I feel like Terry McAuliffe, initially when he was running that strategy, it really did seem to work because, obviously Northern Virginia is very Democratic now. It's swung a lot to the left. They hate Donald Trump, but, he might have overdone it by making the entire race about him, which, maybe not necessarily a terrible thing, as we saw in other states where they often tried associating the opposition candidate with maybe an unpopular leader in their party. Marsha Blackburn with Phil Murphy kept tying him to, Senator Schumer. So the other issue is indeed with Joe Biden's falling popularity that it could prove to be an issue as well, as Eric mentioned. A lot of the stuff with Afghanistan, I think people aren't too happy about. And in general, the economy is not doing as well as it probably should be. Glenn Youngkin also, though, is running a pretty bad campaign. I'm going to be honest here. He's trying to run as a moderate, but then he got caught not being a moderate. So it's a really weird campaign. Plus, the fact he's been endorsed by Trump, and then he made an ad talking about how Trump and McAuliffe had close ties, made it a really weird situation since, is he accepting the Trump base or is he not? So it's wishy-washy. But as Eric was mentioning, Youngkin did take the lead in polling recently, but I do want to say that that's only because of one skewed Fox News poll, which at the time, or rather right now, does seem to be an outlier. The rest of the polls do show Youngkin up. McAuliffe up by 2, 3, 4 points. So for now, I think it's going to be an outlier because it is an 8-point lead for Youngkin. We've never seen a poll like that before, unless we're wrong. Then I guess we'll find out on election night. But for now, we're going to say that Terry McAuliffe is going to win, but this is going to still be a very, very close race. And at the end of the day, what it's going to come down to is, and I'm going to pull up the 2020 map, it's going to 100% come down to these northern counties. The question is, how much can Glenn Youngkin cut into Terry McAuliffe's lead? And quite honestly, I don't think he'll do it enough. For example, Loudoun County, which is right here, very, very Democratic. But if Youngkin can cut down the margin there, he could pull off an upset potentially, but I don't think he'll do it enough. The other thing, obviously, is turnout. How much can Terry McAuliffe turn out his base in Northern Virginia? That'll be very key. And of course, the rural areas of Virginia as well. if Youngkin can get Donald Trump numbers there, and if he can get turnout numbers as high as he can there. Do I think he can do it? No. But is it possible? Absolutely. So that leads us to our final prediction. So as it says here, deadlocked in the race, as we mentioned, the polls show a very, very tight race. So heading into our prediction, I'll start with Virginia. So I am still predicting a lean for Terry McAuliffe, even though the race has tightened up a lot, and maybe he's not winning by the 7 or 8 points that we initially thought. He will still win by, I want to say 2 to 4 points, 2, 3, 4 points. And this is again because there is some polling data, but I'm going to trust the trends more in Virginia, which is that large Northern Virginia trend that's swinging way to the left. That makes me think that the gains Youngkin made won't be enough for him to win. So Virginia, we move it from likely to lean. And I'll hand it over to Eric now for New Jersey.
So as I said earlier in the video, because of New Jersey's strong Democratic base, it's been ever since Chris Christie, New Jersey, it's been relatively Democratic. And as I said, there are some suburb counties that are extremely Democratic, such as Essex, and just general urban areas such as Newark, which is in Essex, and Camden. So just because of the math behind it, it's hard for Ciattarelli to overcome it, no matter how hard he's campaigning, and no matter how hard he's trying to tie Phil Murphy as this, just corrupt politician who's just going to raise taxes on New Jerseyans. So that's why we're probably going to leave the race as likely. As Lucas and I have said, anywhere from 12, 13 points sounds fair, because before it was going to be somewhere around 15 points, 15 plus points. But now that Ciattarelli has actually made himself a name in the recent weeks because of how much advertising he's just doing on TV and just on the internet, the margin is going to lower. He's definitely not going to win. He's just going to decrease the margin by a little bit.
I would absolutely agree with you on that, but I do want to say the ceiling for this race for me is probably around 16, 17. In a best case scenario, Phil Murphy could be getting that high if the polling does appear to be off, which could be the case because, as we know, New Jersey is very, very blue. So I guess we'll see. It'll be a very exciting Tuesday night for all of us to be watching. I guess for those of you wondering, I don't think we will live stream this. We're going to probably be watching it by ourselves, or Eric's going to be studying for a test. So unfortunately, we won't be live streaming.
Yes, it is very sad. And thank you guys all for watching. If you like this episode, please hit the like button. And if you like our content, please hit subscribe. We'll see you in the next episode tomorrow. See ya.